It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline, okay. Now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily. With positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
It is time for our Positive Vibes Only segment, and joining us this week, we've got Dr. Robert Silverman. He's got an incredible bio as a chiropractic doctor, a clinical nutritionist, author of a bestseller, nationally and international speaker. Dr. Silverman, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for taking some time to talk with me.
No problem, no problem. You have done a number of tremendous things in your career. So I have to actually go back to the start. Before you were the 2015 Sports Chiropractor of the Year and an author of a bestseller and doing all the great things you're doing, what made you even get into sports medicine to begin with?
Well, I was an attempted athlete in high school and college, meaning I played, but, I played at a lower level, and sports was always a breakthrough for me. It was a great way to meet different kids. It really taught me all the essence of what I needed in later life: teamwork, leadership, camaraderie. So I knew whatever I did in my life, I wanted to have a sports orientation. And chiropractic was such a great fit because I actually was treated with a sports injury. And, meeting that chiropractor, the Mark Twain quote comes to mind every time I think about it. The two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you knew why. I knew I wanted to be a sports chiropractor.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, so here you are now. You have, oh my goodness, you have written a 2016 Amazon #1 bestseller, and you have a new book, Superhighway to Health. I mean, what was really the inspiration behind writing books and taking your work as a chiropractor to the next level to now be able to reach a bigger audience?
I mean, you just said it. I'm going to piggyback on what you said. I've wanted to reach a bigger audience. It's great doing things one-on-one with patients. It's excellent to be able to get up in front of doctors and share some of the things that you've known and some of the concepts that you think will help people. But when you put it in writing, it's there for perpetuity. And I just wanted to make sure that we could get more and more people on the health train, because really in America, one of the biggest issues that we have is that Americans are not healthy, and as we age, they're getting unhealthier.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what is your most recent book about for those that are listening?
Well, I have a new book coming out in April of 2020. It's called The Superhighway to Health: 7 Steps to Optimizing the Gut-to-Brain Connection. So clearly it's all about the gut-to-brain axis, and, gut health is a critical element. 80% of our immune cells are in our gut. You're seeing athletes turning to all sorts of treatments to help their gut and brain. Look at the conversation of concussion. Look at the conversation in the normal population in the vernacular of Alzheimer's. So that gut-to-brain axis is a unique axis which speaks to each other bidirectionally in a millisecond.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the true guide and the layout that you have, or from what I see. Of course, I haven't read the book, so I have no idea. But from hearing your 7-point program about, restoring gut function and being healthy, that is key. I mean, when we talk about sports, a lot of times we just talk about what we see on the court or field, but you have to be healthy first, and for you, that's something that you get to specialize in and keep athletes and people in general healthy and able to continue doing whatever it is that they love to do and their field of work. So what really was the moment that took your career from being a chiropractor to being someone that's now made guest appearances on huge networks like Fox, NBC, CBS, ABC, Wall Street Journal, and writing books, that light bulb moment that I can do more besides just being a chiropractor?
Oh, I was having a conversation with my 5-year-old niece from Singapore a while ago. And she has turned out to be such a stellar student, but I knew she had a game when we had this conversation. So, I was trying to be the adult in the room while she was literally reading a comic book. And I was complaining to her about some patients. And she looked at me and she basically said that, you're a doctor, you're supposed to know. So that was a jaw-dropping moment.
Yes.
And then, of course, being the mature adult that I was, I started to complain some more and make some more excuses. And she turned around and said to me, Mommy says if you're not good at your job, get another one. I knew I needed to dig in and bring it to the next level.
I love it. It's always incredible when you hear people's discussions of that moment that really changed their career, because it's not something like it varies. It's not always just some super incredible, immaculate moment. Sometimes it's the simplest things, like you mentioned, a conversation with your 5-year-old niece that was like, you know what? Maybe it is time I do more. So what's really for you something like an inspirational message that you'd have on anybody that is pursuing their passion, running into those roadblocks that we all run into, the challenges that have you wondering if you're doing the right thing? I'm sure you've had those moments in your career. What's your message to them to keep going?
My dad told me, and it's not new, but it is without question effective, and it does resonate. You'll never work a day in your life if you like what you do. So it's not work. And there's a quote out there that says, I'd rather be a man of value than a man of success. So every day I go and realize that if I'm able to touch somebody and give them health, I brought value to them, myself, and society. And it's quite fulfilling and exhilarating.
Ironically, that same exact quote was brought up on our episode last week in a similar discussion where the guest in our Positive Vibes Only segment was talking about pursuing his passion. That's exactly it. You truly do not have to work if you are doing what you love. It doesn't feel like work. And for you, getting back into health, I know you also are the founder and CEO of Westchester Integrative Health Center. So you're still, you're doing, like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of incredible things. What is really the focus on not only helping your patients get better, but to keep them healthy and provide them steps to stay healthy?
I'll give you 2 easy steps, nutritional steps.
Okay.
Number 1, adhere to what I call my GPS of health. No gluten, no processed food, no sugars, GPS. And if you really want to push it, take care of your DNA. No dairy, no nicotine, no artificial sweeteners. You do those nutritional changes, and things will turn around. And it's very easy once you get into the water, because the water's not cold and the current isn't hard. And that's the truth. You just have to take the step. If you're not willing to do that, you can't expect outcomes to change.
Okay. So you mentioned no dairy, which stuck out to me because I love my dairy. So it's just finding an alternative. So, I know milk has been a huge topic of discussion. Now people are saying you shouldn't be drinking milk at all. It's very unhealthy. So it's more, I guess, almond milk versus a 2% milk is what you're saying.
Right. We have the almonds. We have the oat milks. We have the coconut milk. So they're great substitute milks. I think the biggest problem, number 1, is definitely cheese, because you and I both know cheese tastes really good. So it's very hard to take a cheese away from people. But now we have some great alternatives. I was watching a show the other night. My wife was actually watching. It's called Madam Secretary. And she was trying to be dairy-free, and she's like, wait a minute, this nut cheese tastes good, but is it nut? But it's not dairy. There's nut cheeses that taste just like cheese that are really, really healthy, cashew nut and things of that nature. So the alternatives, the healthy alternatives and tasty alternatives to cheese are on their way. Yogurt's easy. You have got coconut milk yogurt. We got cashew nut milk yogurt. Just so everybody knows, and here come the dairy farmers, and they're going to come to my Northeast office and pound the door down. They're really going to be annoyed. However, the bottom line is dairy is one of the most allergic foods that anyone can consume, so we have to look past that. And if you look at most athletes, they're not consuming them anymore.
Right. Can I just say that you actually just made my life, because I do not like cheese. Let me backtrack. I like mozzarella cheese, so I like pizza and mozzarella sticks, things like that. But I don't like ham and cheese, mac and cheese, grilled cheese. And I have been telling people jokingly my entire life, well, I should say more my adult life. As a kid, I wasn't telling people this, that, hey, I think it's actually probably a good thing. I don't think cheese is healthy. But I didn't know that. I was just making that up. So I'm glad that you just confirmed my reasoning when I tell people that I'm healthier because I don't eat cheese.
Thank you. I'm sure you are. Great choice, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, so any other simple changes that we can make in our diet specifically? I know exercise is always something that's brought up, but I think the dietary changes are what people really are always looking to. What can you substitute for, as you talk about with dairy, but with other foods like gluten and processed foods? What's a good substitution for those?
So gluten, so we have to avoid the glutens and the wheat flour. So in place of there's the ancient grains, and some of the ones that really come to mind, like for bread, ancient grains, let's stay on that. Instead of wheat, let's use a quinoa. Let's use a sorghum. Now, in reference to breads, people like to have a bread, an American bun, an American sandwich. It's very simple. We have the options of almond flour, flaxseed flour, coconut flour, and those ancient grain flours, and they taste great. So those patients and those athletes that have made the changes has really worked well. Let me give you one little thing. So most people, and here's a caveat, everybody's going to write in on this. Everybody says that, and I eat it, that sushi is healthy. Well, let's go through the ingredients of. I know most people order.
I don't eat sushi.
Well, you can.
You're
sushi
awesome.
means Sushi means fish and rice. So fish and rice, okay. It has to be wild fish. Most of the fish, unless you go or ask, is farm raised. Salmon, for instance, if it's farm raised, is one of the most toxic foods that we could consume. The rice, the white rice, is high in the glycemic index. Brown is better. Rice tastes really sweet. And people go, it's a special rice. No, they add sugar to the rice. And in addition, the rice gets clumped. How does it happen? Rice vinegar. That's gluten. So what we deem a healthy food, we just need a little bit more examination. So those are one of the things that I recommend a lot. Just, follow my blog, follow other health blogs, other sports health blogs, and start looking for these little tidbits so you can start just making better choices.
Okay. So specifically for the athlete, I know you've touched on things that a lot of athletes don't eat, but what are the keys to not only just dietary changes, but also restoring, when you talk about after a game specifically, restoring all that you've lost and staying on the proper plan, I guess, to make sure that you're maximizing your athletic ability with every week, whether you're a professional athlete or just a youth athlete? What would you suggest?
Recovery is critical for an athlete, without question, and there's a window of opportunity right after athletics, and that window typically is 30 minutes after completion of athletics. So we're looking to, if they're a carb-fueled athletes, which many athletes are now carb-fueled. If they were fat-fueled, it would be different. But not to muddy the water, if they're carb-fueled, we want to get some protein within 30 minutes. You want to get a few carbohydrates to shuttle it in, and you always want some things called branched-chain amino acids. They enable people to get some electrolytes in, and they also allow for what we would call protein synthesis, muscles to recover from injury. And in addition, by taking the carbohydrates, you store some energy so that athlete doesn't tank and hit the wall the next day while they're training.
Okay, so the idea of chocolate milk after a game, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I like the idea of dark chocolate. I don't like the idea of milk. That was very, there were some studies that was ineffective because it was a 3-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio. That study was about 10 years ago. For me, I'm not a chocolate milk fan because of dairy, so I would much prefer if somebody wanted something, maybe like a vegan protein and mixed up. That would be better. They taste fantastic, and this way there's no allergic reactions. Remember, 80% of your immune cells are in your gut. Dairy and gluten damage your gut, so we want to avoid that. Let's take an athlete, for example, Djokovic, one of the greatest tennis players ever, playing in an era of all these great tennis players. He never won a Grand Slam till he went gluten-free, and many tennis players have copied him since then because they realize that his recovery and his stamina through the match is stellar, and he attributes it to not getting inflamed by his lack of consumption of gluten now.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. These are things that have always. I'm by no means a health expert and will never claim to be, but I know throughout the course of my sports career that I've heard on one end or the other, it's good. What's good for you and what's not good for you. So it's nice to hear some clarification on things. I'm still stuck on the cheese. My day is made. But Dr. Silverman, where can you talk about your blog? Where can our listeners follow you on social media? And even your book that's coming out in April, which I'm excited for, to get more information on these tips and advice that you have for them to stay healthy.
Sure. My website is drrobertsilverman.com, but if you want to check, we post 2 to 3 times socially per day all these tips and articles. Facebook, drrobertsilverman.com, same in LinkedIn, and the same in Instagram. We use all 3 daily with multiple posts, sharing information, obviously for free.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining our Positive Vibes Only segment this week. It has been a pleasure talking with you about your career, which is incredible, and I wish you all the best moving forward, as well as sharing some tips for our listeners and myself that they can take to be healthier moving forward. So thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live.